What you're witnessing in front of you is not your usual 3:30 AM fever dream, but rather my newest level Powahaus. So what is Powahaus, you might ask? Welcome to Creator Logs, where I build slop and talk about it. Our story starts with this image of the Powah. Yeah, just take it all in. This image has become a meme of sorts, where it was given the name the Powah chapstick image. Anyways, I randomly had a ridiculous idea for an effect. What if I made the chapstick image bounce to the worst drop possible? I decided to try and make it happen. I first used a Geode mod called Geometries to GD to import the image into the level. I then set its Z layer to B5 and added a shader effect to make the entire layer bulge to the beat of music. Here's the result. This is the most peak theme I've ever made. Originally I wanted to end it there, but then I had an even better idea. What if I turn this into a full-length, intentionally really awful joke level and present it to the Powah when it's finished to see his reaction? I decided to get cooking with what would end up being my first 2.2 level. I started off by building the gameplay for the drop. I wanted to make something kind of stupid, but not anything too bad. I decided to make the structuring have no block design whatsoever, so as to not take attention away from the bread and the butter and the meat and potatoes of the level. I also made the object color black, so the gameplay would still be visible, even with the Powah pecking at the screen. And with that, I was done with this part for now. Next was to make the gameplay for the rest of the level. I wanted to make really stupid gameplay that was fun in a weird kind of way. The result is that some gameplay parts are disgusting while others are fine but kind of just feel off. Also, side note, I didn't get any playtesters for this level because why would I? As for the difficulty, I wanted this to be a hilariously unbalanced insane demon. I feel like I did a pretty good job at accomplishing this. That's all for the gameplay side of things. Now that the gameplay is done, it's time to start decorating. Because the gameplay in the first part is special, I wanted to make the decoration even more special. I started by choosing the worst possible rainbow color combination, and then I started building my structures. For most of the block design, I chose the prestigious combination of random rainbow blending objects and glow. Other structures, particularly the ones that kill you, are just made of a bunch of spikes. These saws are made of mice spinning monsters, and this orb deco is made of a butchered particle effect. I also added some random spikes, blocks, and other random stuff to develop space. People seem to like levels with click indicators, so I gave them just that. One thing I did to develop space was the inclusion of these little blurbs of text. All of these are references to pop culture, media, the Powah, or whatever else I'll think of when I'm working on funny pimp level. Last but not least was the background. I have experience making decent looking particle effect backgrounds from Hazy Horizons. I definitely didn't want to show that here. There's also this rainbow nib thing I made for a foreground. However, I decided to be a good creator for once and delete it due to it being n amount of objects. And with that out of the way, this part is done. Next up was this UFO section. I originally didn't know what to do for this part, but after playing the gameplay and listening to the song for a little bit, I was reminded of the UFO structure and Beyond the Nature by I first got to work on the structuring, something that would feel like Beyond the Nature while having that sweet, sweet Powahaus feel. I then got to work on the actual decoration, which I didn't think would be that hard to recreate. I was wrong. I started by making those weird orbital things that you see in Beyond the Nature. Not hard to make. Next was the base block design, which was a little hard to make because Acropopiss is oh so great at making assets. I then made some saws, spikes, and air deco to fill up space, which were also not too hard to make. What was a little hard to make was the pulsing blocks in the background, because I had to create unique structures while setting groups for each block. And if you thought that was hard to make, for the pulsing blocks in the block design, for each structure, I had to set each row and column to their own group in order to create this wavy pulsing effect. And if you thought that was hard to make, this block effect in the foreground required me to set each of these blocks to their own group, remember their groups, and then make this dumb shit into blocks to move to specific places on the screen with each beat of the music. Yeah, this part definitely took the longest to make. I'm happy with the result, but damn, I'll probably never spend this long making a gimmick for a joke level again. Moving on from that hell, we jump straight into hell. I knew I wanted to make a hell themed part somewhere in this level, but I wasn't quite sure on how to execute it in a way that would also be a dumb reference to pop culture. Perfect. Hazbin Hotel and Hello Boss are hell themed adult cartoons made by Pop. No, I've never seen Hazbin Hotel due to this character in particular seeming really annoying, so I'm in no way qualified to give an in-depth review about the show, but I have heard some good things about it, so I might give it a watch someday. I have, however, seen the show's successor, Hello Boss. Hello Boss is a show about these three imps who, along with their trusty furry mates, run a business in hell where they are commissioned by demons to go to the surface and absolutely annihilate people who bring them down to hell, hence the name Immediate Murder Professionals. I really like the show for the most part. The animation are excellent, the characters are pretty likable, the plots provide unique takes on real-life situations, and the queer, raunchy humor is plentiful. However, if I have to see this fucking owl lady again,
I'm going to piss my own ass!
Regardless, this show is definitely overrated. If you want to see me do a more in-depth review on the Sit-In Gem, please let me know in the—
Shut up, dear furry!
Anyways, what were we talking about? The Hell Powah? I wanted to theme this part after the Hell City backgrounds found in these cartoons. I started by making the structures, which I obviously wanted to make look like buildings. I did this by connecting a lot of structures on the ground to each other and then adding yellow windows. I also put some spike decoration on the parts of the buildings that have ground spikes to make them more visible. For the spikes, saws, and structures floating in midair, I created these chains to make them look like they're being held up by something. For the buildings in the background, I created 2 layers of buildings, each with a different HSV ship to give it a little depth. Some may say these structures look like they came from our post-mission, which they do, so in order to give it the hell feel, I added some scaled up red glow in the front of each layer of the buildings, and it made sky red gradients. I then added some clouds and some stars, and just like that, I accidentally made one hell of a part.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Moving on to the last part of the pre-job, for some reason, my first thought for the ship part was Acropopiss by Souls TRK. I first made the structuring, spikes, spike decoration, and even those weird Acropopiss spike clusters. I then made the block design, making certain blocks pulse to the music, and then added a little bit of detail between the structures. For the background, I just made this moving black tile wall and added those weird mid-ground rhombuses. While this part was technically complete, I feel like it still was missing something. And it turns out that something was fast-moving cloud status sense of speed right before the drop. Now the part's over. Next up was the obligatory level name right before the drop. Remember that black tile background from made earlier? I made it split open and reveal this rainbow effect I made with a few particle effects. The spikes move in and the level name flies across the screen. By the way, the level name is just made up basic text, nothing too special. Skipping over to the second half of the drop, this section has these 2 transition waves saying geeked and locked in. These structures themselves are just made of slopes. The animation for the text is created by using a bunch of rotating scale triggers, nothing too extreme. For the spider part, I wanted to do something special. You see, there's a break in the song during this part that actually kind of sounds normal. So I wanted to kind of mimic that for this part. For the block design, I started by making this trippy rainbow effect. I made it happen by setting these blocks to a red color and shifting the hue by 20 for each diagonal line of blocks. I then just spammed a bunch of color triggers. For the darker objects 1Z or above, I use these glitter funk blocks and spammed a bunch of rotate triggers to make them rotate really fast.
Wow!
These rainbow beams are made using a hue shift glow, which I made appear and rotate to the beat of the music, and yes, this part is inspired by the Dedication series. The saws are also just a bunch of hue shifted saws, which I placed over each other. And for the background, I used more color funk blocks, which I made shift around. I also used a lens circle with the tint ID set to the color of the rainbow objects in order to give the background a rainbow tint. Finally, for the glow on the sides, I just used scaled up glow. I think this part turned out, well, a nice break from all the stupidity. For this next part, I wanted to pay homage to one of the most Powah movies of all time, The Nut Job 2, Nutty by Nature. If y'all have seen the Powah Shuriken recently, then you know all about my Muldoomba. The backstory is that me, the Powah, and a few of our friends watched The Nut Job 2 and were dying laughing at the still frame of the main villain in the movie, my Muldoomba, because we all thought he kind of looked like a Goomba. So, I decided to make this shitty edit where I placed the Goomba's face with my Muldoomba, and thus the new face of the pansexual community is born. Anyways, I wanted to theme this part after Liberty Land from the Nut Job 2. I started by making these gears, which are held up by these posts, kind of like the ones in the Hello part. Next, I made these particle effects that look like spikes flying everywhere to have that unfinished fair feel. Next, I made the circus tents, which are made with a bunch of warped slopes with different Z orders. Having these on different Z orders allowed me to make this very subtle parallax between each tent. I thought it would also be funny if I used frame-by-frame animation to make the waving flags on top of each tent. I made 3 different iterations of the flags and made each frame toggle on and off to create the illusion of them blowing in the wind. These spotlights are just rotating glow beams, nothing too special. What is special are these lights, which are made by these 2 layers of glow dot arches. I find it cool how you can make something good looking by placing a bunch of glow everywhere. Next, I made the sky a blue gradient, made these clouds, and added a lens circle to really make it feel like you're in a fair at night. And damn, this part looks pretty sweet. I can't believe how many of the parts in this all turned out to be some of the best parts I've made, period. Now, before we go on to the grand finale, I wanted to take my attention back to this part. You see, my original plan was to just have the decoration be these black outlines with the bouncing the Powah in the background. But because a lot of these parts in the level actually have really decent decoration, I decided to add some more detail to this part. Through the suggestion of Superclock, I added these low opacity rainbow block to structure spikes and behind saws. He also recommended that I add these rainbow arrow effects moved up and down the screen, which was a nice touch. Pinky1 recommended that I added some sort of inverted gradient to the part, so using a gradient trigger, I made the entire part invert colors during this sound in the song. I also made these spiky things on the sides of the screen using warp spike decorations, and with that, this part looks a whole lot better in my opinion. And now, it's time. The grand finale. The Powahaus asymmetrical duel. You know that the Powah faced from the first duel? Well, what if I told you that it never left after the first drop? It was here all this time, watching over you, and now it's back, better than ever. So yeah, I decided to bring back the Powah image from the first half of the drop, but this time, rainbow and rotating. To add a little bit more to the background, I added random particle effects, my specialty. This dual gameplay I made was intentionally really bad. There's no thought or effort behind this, just something that is somehow possible to do consistently. Moving on to the block design, for lawn pillars, I made a shitty recreation of those rainbow pillars from The End of the Furious by Novelboy. For the rest of the block design, I made shitty recreations of the block design and the Raging Rapids tool. To fill in some space in the part, I added these rainbow saws, but it still didn't feel like it was enough. So then I did what I always do when I don't know what to build, spammed a bunch of unnecessary effects, such as these low opacity no-touch saws and these pinwheel effects. But yeah, this part came out alright, and now the level is fully decorated. But wait, there's one more thing to add, and that's of course the Powahaus Hall of Fame. Vital Hall of Fame members include Superclux Weird on Mario, M-rated Lincoln Loud, Smart Dog, the dude from Hedgehog, the dude from Toxin Lab 4, Cute Bisexual Couple, M and Shady, the dude from Regular Show, Hellspawn, Football, and Legendary. I also made a wall of oops, a random ass glowing saw structure, more background particle effects, the creator is this institution, and the creator of the song. By the way, all these character models were made by using warped objects from the Hexagon tab. For the actual end screen, I made speedy pinwheel effects around this Powah face, set to the very prestigious song Who Likes to Party by Kevin MacLeod. And just like that, this level is complete.
It's time to stop!
Right now I'm just finishing up the character designs for the wall of oops, and then this level should be all good to release.
The game just crashed.
Yo, let's go.
Yo, let's go, yeah, awesome.
That's right. After a 4-hour session of making oops, the game decided to freeze. After closing and reloading the game and entering the editor, all that was left was a stupid ass miscolored Mario. 4 hours of work straight down the toilet. Or so I thought. See, I used this mod called Better Edit, which provides a lot of quality of life improvements to the GD editor, and one of which is an autosave feature which automatically saves and creates a backup of the level you're working on every 10 minutes. So I went to the list of backups and loaded the most recent one, and oh my god, my progress was restored. Thank you, Jesus. Now that the level is finished, it's time to verify and upload this level. There's not much to talk about in verification, other than I did end up nerfing a lot of the random possible clicks in the first half, which resulted in the level definitely being easy and insane naming difficulty, because the second half is overall much easier than the first half. So I verified the level, uploaded to the servers, and it got unlisted in about 20 minutes.
Hey, what's the big idea?
Well, you see, remember when I said I used geometrized GD to import the chapstick image into this level? Well, there's one issue with that. In order to prevent copyright issues, levels which use are imported from outside sources, such as Geometrize, are unlisted from the servers upon their release. And because this image of the Powah technically isn't free to use, Powahaus was taken down. There is allegedly a workaround that involves uploading the level without the geometrized image, waiting until it gets a difficulty phase, and then updating the level with the geometrized image. However, whenever I updated the level with the geometrized image, it still got unlisted. So, that was it. Was the work I put into this level over the past 2 months all for nothing? No, it wasn't. After seemingly no way to get the level on the servers with the geometrized Powah, I thought,
how about the next best thing?
That's right, after the level got listed for a second time, Superclux offered to recreate the chapstick image from scratch. And I think he did a good job with recreating it. In fact, I'd say it even looks funnier than the original. He also decided to add this grid background to make the Powah stand out more. So yeah, special thanks to Superclux for saving this whole fucking level. And that's about it. I re-verified the level with Duhfix by Superclux and uploaded it to the servers with no problems. This entire level proved to be so much more than a generic joke level. It ended up being one of the best levels I've ever made. Sure, at the end of the day, this level is made for a quick laugh, but if anything could be taken from the 100 hours I spent on this level, it's that even the most stupid of creations can be something great. So yeah, thank you everyone for being a part of this journey. See ya.